in his mind, in his mind, he couldn't understand that you might access or do things in a different way, okay? It made you laugh. We need to go back to school and think about things in a different way so we can framework stuff, so we don't become resistant to the change. Because that's one of the things that, it does again who I meet to. There is massive resistance to some of this change, and that's underpinned by a natural and fundamental human fear of change. So some of the things that come out of going back to school is understanding really the network society and what it means. Now, every single one of these is a social network created out of analysing and mapping massive data flows, like 54 billion data points for a mobile phone operator. So you can understand that social networks actually have a cartography and a meaning that we need to understand. We need to understand what I talk flowability, how information and communication flows. We need to understand hot media and what does that mean to us and how does that mean, what are we going to do with that concept? And we need to talk about what your purpose and role is in life. I say that brands need to be three things, or organisations: life enabling, life simplifying, or navigational, i.e. help me navigate through this sort of massive complexity of life that I seem to be being overwhelmed by and confronted with. So I need to get you from thinking like this to thinking more like that, okay? That you understand that the way that we connect and put things together creates more meaning for us. Thinking. We like to do a lot of thinking. I like to do a lot of thinking. So we can go away and think for you. And you can see that there's a book that we wrote. Microsoft in the USA commissioned me to write a paper on the mobile society, which I published last year. And then recently we've just published a book called Social Media Marketing, which kind of really looks at some of the issues around sort of data and communications and what we might or should be doing about it. And then, of course, we've got the doing. So what are we going to do? And so very briefly, I did a project with Blick. I consulted to them in 2007, I think it was, when they were going to launch. And we talked a lot about the business, how it would work. We talked about the currency of information. But one of the other things that we left behind, or I left behind, was an idea called Shift 6. And Shift 6, is is something that we've installed into about 6 universities. You can only belong to it if you are a Blick member, but we're creating ideation programs and working with young people that really want to get close to brands in a way, where we kind of talking to them about their thoughts and experiences about the Blick brand, but they're recognised in Blick. Blick is listening and then acting on it, because sometimes the best people have the best insights about your business are those people which are using it. But you've got to leave your ego outside the room as a brand and an organisation, show you're listening and act on that. And that creates very powerful engagement in my mind. So we work with a state broadcaster in the Nordics. I don't do sort of, these sorts of projects in terms of that's really what I'm selling, but very interested in how you create engagement for a state broadcaster. The interesting thing for me, really, in many ways, was not the sort of physical manifestations of the world. It was actually sitting down with a channel head, and I said, you've got a very limited budget. I will come for 9 months with a very small team of people, hand-selected. We will be passionate about trying to solve your problem. But the reality is, when I leave in 9 months' time, I want the people in that organisation to be as passionate about what we are doing as I am. So the biggest challenge is not the thing that we have to do, it's how we're going to do it. It's your people. I'm not a change management expert, but what I did was actually find a way of engaging people in the process and in the project so they embraced what they created, that they were prepared to invest and to work through some quite complex problems that we were presenting with them. We created a drink for the Coca-Cola company. This is the first asymmetric bottle ever produced in the Coca-Cola system. And they told me it couldn't be done. And I said part of the engagement here is how you physically hold this thing in your hand, how it relates to the communication ideal. Coke R&D said it can't be done. And I said, well, it must be done because it's part of the idea. So we were sort of looking at engagement here, even in a kind of a physical form. And we consulted to IPG. I worked with them for 3 very intense, mind-numbing weeks, where they were sort of pitching for the launch of the N-series phones, the first real video-enabled phones there were. And it was interesting because the brief was cross-platform marketing communications, not advertising driven. They didn't put this into production, but this one piece of work won IPG the global business to launch it. And it came from an outsider, for someone who was actually thinking in a different way to try and explain to them what that meant. So we created the Quentin Tarantino Film School. And yes, it was cross-platform communication, so there are ads. And we created things like this, where we demonstrated to them that if you ran an ad on Kiss FM and you said, if you come down to the shopping mall and you can act with Tom Cruise, and that actually will be uploaded onto your phone, what are you going to do with that piece of content? It's not advertising anymore. It's a valuable piece of communication. Okay, this actual project had a big influence within Nokia also about so really thinking about what communication and engagement communication was all about. And Fanta came to me and asked me and us, what would you do to completely relaunch Fanta as a brand, as an engagement marketing project? And we said, well, we need an idea, so we're going to call it Fanta Life, which is an advanced living course for young people to get more out of life. Okay. And what you got up here is a snapshot of things that we did, which were physical, analog, digital, using conventional media, old media, sticking these things together to create something that was far more iconic and interesting for people to want to be involved with. We create new business propositions and we explore the technologies and capability. So this is a sketch of a media project I'm working on at the moment, looking at what we call mass niche media and how that is going to work, and talking with a group of people about metadata, tagging, how commerce gets stitched into the fabric of the platform, and actually how we're going to design that and bring that to life. And also things like, how do you take classifieds in media and create a thing called first in the queue, where again, intention and search becomes the primary role of thinking about it. And it's interesting that the Johnston Press, who sold their business last year, was in the family for 250 years. And I did say to Tim Baldler in 2006, early 2006, I said, if you don't really think about how you give value to your audience and to your advertisers, change the inventory and the way it's bought and sold digitally, you are going to have a serious problem with your business. And unfortunately, again, the straight-line thinkers within the Johnston Press weren't able to think about or embrace the world in a different type of way. If I was working for a mobile phone company, I would be creating a project called This is Modern Britain. This is Modern Britain is designed to get the nation of Britain to talk about what it means to be British. I would bring in the UK's third largest TV production company. I would get Channel 4 involved, and we would create a multi-platform experience for people to do stuff. Why would we do that? Because we actually want to really get people using their devices in a different type of way. We want to create an idea that really is entertaining and engaging. And we think that actually that in that process can really change people's behavior. Okay, so getting people involved. And then finally, we were approached by Master Foods, who asked us to, how will we create a completely different type of pet care range? So from business insight and really looking at a business model, creating a completely different way of how we create the product, how we created the brand, the communication, where we looked at all of the sort of different sort of types of communication channels, right down even to distribution, to make this thing a completely different and compelling brand experience and proposition. And these are just some examples of some conventional, traditional media advertising. And that's me.